So if you have a Bible or Bible app, I'd like you to turn over there to John chapter 7, verse 14 through 24. We're going to continue on with our series here in the Gospel of John. And today the message title is, Why We Can Believe Jesus. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you were speaking to somebody or listening to someone and you thought in your head, boy, I don't know if I can believe this person. Maybe you were up late at night, you were watching an infomercial on television, and they were advertising some miracle gadget that slices and dices and cooks and cleans and organizes your life and even cooks breakfast for you in the morning. And you're thinking, wow, is any of this real? Is this true? And I think most people today, they understand that you cannot believe everything you hear. Back in the early 80s, I was pastoring a church in Anaheim, and I learned this lesson about who to believe, who to trust, the hard way. This church I was pastoring had a large food pantry and clothing pantry, and one day I got a knock on the door, and there was a young man, a young woman holding a baby, and they showed me this little bag that they had, and inside the bag, all they had, they said to eat, was a potato and an egg. And it's like, oh my goodness. So I went upstairs to our food pantry. I got a generous amount of food for them and gave it to them. And they also said they needed help with rent. So I opened up my wallet and gave them the last $40 that I had. And during the conversation, I learned that they didn't go to church anywhere. So I asked them, would you like to come to our church tomorrow? And they said, well, we'd like to, but we don't have any transportation. And I said, well, that's not a problem because I'll come and pick you up. What's your address? And so I wrote down their address, and then the next morning, got up to go pick them up for church, and I'm driving down their street, and I'm looking around for their address, and I can't find it. So I thought, well, maybe I just missed it, so I did a U-turn, went back a second time, looked both sides of the street, still couldn't find their address, and I thought, well, it's got to be here. Surely it has to be here. So I did another U-turn and went back the third time, and I couldn't find the address, and then it's like, wow, I can't believe it. I've been conned. I've been lied to. Can you imagine that somebody would actually lie to a pastor? It happens. Right after that, I sat down to try to figure out what was it that this man said to me the day before. And sure enough, I remembered. He said something about living in an apartment or a room above a garage. So I thought, well, I'll drive up and down the street, see if I can find something like that. And sure enough, I found a room above a garage. And I thought, well, maybe this is the place. And so I got out of the car, walked up to the house, knocked on the door, and an older woman answered the door. I introduced myself, explained who I was, and how the day before I had helped this young man and his wife and his little baby who had no food. And I was here to pick them up for church. And I wanted to know, does this man live here? I gave her the name of the man. And she said, well, yes, he does live here. And I went, great. And she said, but he's not married and he doesn't have a baby. And so I said, well, do you do me a favor and just go upstairs and tell the man that Pastor Jackson is here and he wants to take his family to church. And she just smiled at me and she said, sure will. She went upstairs and all of a sudden I could hear this commotion upstairs, drawers opening and shutting and feet stomping around upstairs and people muttering and everything. And eventually the man comes running down the stairs and he's out of breath. And I look him straight in the eye and I said, is your family ready to come to church with me this morning? And he confessed that he had lied to me the day before. And I said, well, I guess I'm going to have to get that $40 back from you. And he said, well, I don't have it. And I said, well, I guess that means I'm going to have to call the police and press charges. And he immediately reached in his pocket and he handed $40 to me. Now, I don't know what happened to that young man after that. I really don't. But I pray that that experience was a turning point for him, that eventually he came to know Christ, that he started going to church, and that he changed his ways. But I'll never forget that day because it helped me to understand a very valuable lesson about trust and who you can believe. And in our passage today, the people listening to Jesus, they were wondering, can we believe Jesus? And maybe you're here this morning and you wrestled with that same kind of a question in your own heart. Maybe at some point, you thought, well, I'd like to believe Jesus. I'd like to accept him into my life. I want him to be my Savior, but I just really don't know if I can believe him. And if you've ever felt that way, You're in the right church today because Jesus gives to us three very powerful reasons why we can believe him.